Hi everyone, hope everyone is safe and well. Welcome to one of our Disney Infinity tutorials based in the Mos Eisley Spaceport. Now, over the last few days we've been building this backdrop to set up a number of adventures, and the first adventure that we released early this week was a two-player match throughout the city, which was a race to various checkpoints. Now, in this clip, what we're going to do is we're going to show you the logic and the mechanics to make this gameplay work. Now, I've already shown you how the game works, but I'll just do a bit of a quick recap. What you basically do is it's a two-player game, and you have to race throughout the city to find where these checkpoints are. Now, only one checkpoint is active at one time. Now you'll see I'm trying to find it, then they randomly appear throughout the city. 4 on one side and 4 on the other. Now, once they are activated, smoke flume comes up to help you spot them. But you must stop directly within the point. If you drive through, it doesn't count. When you get there, the first player gets there gets 5 points. The second player has 10 seconds to get there, and if they do, they get 3 points, but if they don't, the timer switches off and they miss out. Once it disappears, it will then randomly generate another 1 point within the other side of the city, so we need to get there, and it's a race throughout the city to get there to these various checkpoints. Now, we've set a total of 30, so the first person to get to 30 wins. And now, if you check out the other clip that we did, it just shows you it's a great game, a lot of arguing, a lot of tension, but it's a good thing to play on couch if you're doing it with your family. So we loved this, and we thought it was really good fun. So I had Ahsoka play with us this time. So check out, there was some funny moments. She didn't like the design of the map because she kept on crashing, but I did quite like how it all turned out. So this is just the first one of many different types of levels we're going to be based in this city. Okay, so I'm going to show you the logic and how this all comes together. So the good thing about this map is that all the gameplay is stored within inside the city. No player actually ventures on the outside, so therefore we can create all our logic on the outside knowing full well they'll never see it, and so I don't have to move out of the way. So I've just created a ground block. I think I put 2 of these in here, so I'd put 2 at the side, and we're keeping it separated so we can clearly see what we've set up. And one of the things that I preach quite a lot is layout, and this is vital for this particular game. Okay, now we're going to bring in a challenge maker, and a challenge maker works perfectly. The only thing we can't do is add any titles or text to explain to the user what it does, which is a little bit frustrating, but if we keep it simple, the user will know what it means. So we need one of those, and we also need a scoreboard. So under your creativity toys, we're looking for these particular objects, and we're going to lay them out and space them accordingly so we can see where they are. Okay. We also need a couple other things. We need 2 locators. This is where we're going to get player 1 and player 2 to start. So they're going to play side by side. So here's player 1 and here's player 2. Right. And for the first time I thought it's important to know who was the winner. Yeah, so I'm going to use podiums, which I've never used before until now. So we've done 120 clips on this channel. I've never used these particular logic, which is quite good. There's a few other things I haven't used, but I'll show you those. I've got a few more plans of those. Now, the scoreboard here is key to everything, yeah. And what we're going to do is we're going to link the results to the challenge maker. So this will make sure that these are connected to this section, yeah. So link score for results, yeah. And what we're going to do is when we start a game, so new logic connection on the challenge maker. When we start the game, can you reset the results? Because it's a fresh new game, so can we reset it? So there's a couple of links going back and forth between these. Okay, so right, so the first thing is we go to properties. How big a score do you want? Now, I set it to 30, and 30 seemed to be a good size. Yeah, it was good enough to do a reset. You could do a big match if you wanted to. I don't want to win by 2, but I want to keep the scores visible so the user can see it. So that's all we have to do for that particular setting. Okay. What we're also going to do is we're going to link these podiums. So new logic connection, podium. If player 1 wins, they get teleported to that section. Okay, which is quite good. So that's when the game is complete. So teleport the player to this point because they could be scattered anywhere within the city. Yeah, that's another good thing to have because you don't want them to have to travel all the way back. And the other thing is, where do the players start? Yeah, new logic connection, locator connection. We're going to link them to these points. So player 1's going to start here, and player 2 is going to start on the other point. And then we can move those later at the end of this clip to where we want the players to actually move. Now you'll notice there was player 3 and player 4. You can't have 4 players because the online option's now been switched off, so it can only ever be a 2-player game, which is a bit of a shame. It's a shame they had to switch the servers off when they stopped it, but this game is 5 years old and you can still have a lot of fun from it. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the properties of the challenge maker. Now you'll notice here that I've set its point, its high to low, we've got the location separate, which we want player to be set either side, which is all good. So there's not too much here of the properties, but we can change it whether it's a fighting game or a racing game. Now in this particular case it is going to be a racing game, right? So we're going to get the vehicles to spawn for us. Now the difference is when you do a game that uses vehicles, the player cannot leave that vehicle, they're stuck within it. Okay, so you'll notice I haven't created any vehicles within the actual level. Yeah, that will appear when you choose the actual mark. So you'll see I've looked at these various different settings, we chose different points, the different players are separate. You could use the maker to squash them together, but because they're going to be in a vehicle, I've left it to be the actual points. I've also changed it when the game finishes, you put them back at the challenge maker so that they can start doing the next game. And this is the key part. This is what type of match. Do you start on foot? Do you start on vehicles? Okay, and what I want to do is I want to choose them on a ground vehicle, so they can be flying vehicles. So can you start all the people on a ground vehicle? And the question is what type of vehicle you want. Now if we go to the best toy set you can get, which is why you can choose speeder bike or sandcrawler. Now in this particular clip I've shown you I've chosen sandcrawler, and if you watch my playthrough I switch between the two. But we'll use sandcrawler in this particular case, but that is our challenge marker maker setup. Right, so we're just going to add another land here to give us more space to keep our code nicely laid out, which is vital for us to follow how this works. Now one of the problems I found is because we had too many path tools, all my logic did not highlight up to you can't see the connections between the logic, which was a disaster, because this is probably one of the complex things we've ever done. So what we're going to do here is we need to make sure the layout is perfectly set up. So we're going to go through all these little sections, and I've done 8 gates. So we're going to set these up. The first thing we're going to need is a dynamic trigger. Now you'll see here I'm spacing them apart and I'm making sure they're evenly, so they're roughly about 6 squares. Now you could do 8 squares, doesn't matter how far apart they are, but they need to be nicely organized. Now the code we're going to do here, the program inside, is, I would say, one of the most complicated we've done. But if you follow these rules and you follow the layout and you keep it nice and neat, it actually is very simple, and you're going to do some quite complicated stuff, so you're going to impress yourself. So some people say my coding is too complicated, I can't do that. If you follow this guide, I guarantee you'll do some really complicated programming, yet it will work and you can test it before you even move it around, which is genius. Right, what we're going to do with these trigger areas, we're going to have a locator for these, so we're going to put these locators in. Now obviously I've done 8. You could make this life easy for you. You could do 3 aside, or you could do 2 points, but you want a little bit of difference to it, so I thought 8 was actually quite a good number, and we don't blow the logic, which is great. So we have these little locators, and we're now going to link each one of these trigger areas to these locators. So we're going to a new locator, connect to it. Now someone showed me ages ago, why go that way, go the opposite way. Choose the locator, new locator connection, and link it to the trigger area, and you need to do that for every single one of these. Yeah, so to speed things along, I'm going to chop and change this clip and jump certain sections. So you'll see here I've gone through each one of these, gone to locator and linked the locator to those trigger areas. Okay, so that's important. Okay, that's really important between the two. Now what we need to do now is we need to go to the properties of these areas. We're going to say, right, it's not this toy, it is the locator. And that means when anyone goes into that area, it ticks it across. Now the distance is important as well. You need to set it to 3, because 3 is the circle area that we're going to get to appear it. That's the exact radius. So each one of these you now need to go in, change it to locator, and you need to change it to 3. And again, you have to do it for each one of these particular 8 boxes. Okay, so they're all now set up. Every one of those has been set up to the locator and is set to 3. Okay, so there's a lot of little things we're setting up here, but we need to make sure we've set them all up, and then we can carry on adding the next stage. Perfect. A lot of swipes in this, sorry, a lot of editing we've had to do. Right, so we now need 2 more tools that we're not actually going to set up, but we're not actually going to use until a bit later. So what I need an effects generator. Okay, now I need an effects generator for every one of the points. This is going to be the smoke plume. Now I chose the smoke plume because it was easy to hopefully see in the city. Whereas the fireworks and stuff didn't work, so the smoke plume was this is my indicator where you got to go and get to. Okay, the other thing that we need is a radar marker, and I showed these clip before, but I'm combining it together. So we need one of these little radar markers, and that's to highlight it where it is on the map. It gives you, the radar marker gives you that circular symbol, so it lets the user know they've got to park inside that area. That was the key thing with this. Okay, right, so we've set all those up, and now we have to link all these to them. So we're going to click on the locator, and we're going to link that to this particular object. So new locator connection, connect to the point. Okay, new locator connection and connect to point, and we're going to do that for all the other ones. Now, because there's so many things we have to set up, if you do it in stages like this, you keep it clear, you keep it simple, but there are a lot of connections we're going to do. And so we're going to go each stage. So I'm going to speed this up again, and we're going to do that for every single one point. So the locator now is linked to new locator connection for the radar marker and new location connection for the effects generator. Okay, and sadly you can't see any of these lines because we've used too much building logic, which is this, but it still works and it's still connected, so that's the good thing. And we've now set up all those out all the way through, and if you look through you can't see the lines, but you can see that the connections do exist. There are 3 pointers, which is good. We've set them all up. We can check that they are there, so even though we can't see them, they still do work. Right, now we have to go to the radar marker and we have to set these all up. So we now have to go to this and say, what do we want them to be? Do you want them to be blue? Well, actually I want the blue ring. I want the blue ring so it appears going round, okay, and it needs to switch to say not this, I want the radar to be on the locator. Yeah, so you change it to the locator. Okay, so that's now going to appear on that dot. Okay, and that's all we've got to do for that setting. But guess what? You have to do it for every single one. The effects generator we're not going to do yet, so we don't have to worry about this one. But in this case, we have to go down to properties, and we have to change it to the blue ring, and we have to make it to the locator. That's important. If you don't do it to the locator, it won't work. Yeah, so it's got to be locator. So you need to change that for all the other boxes. Okay, so all 8, go through, change those 3 settings. So blue ring, and change it to not this toy to locator. Okay, and you've got to do that again for all 8 points. So we're going to repeat that one again. Alright, it's quite a few lot of settings to change, but it's quite good. So far so good. We've got that all set up. That's all linked through. That trigger area is going to start us off. So we need some logic gates. Now this is where the clever bit comes in. So we're going to bring in 2 logic gates here, or 4 in total actually. Okay, and you'll notice I've done either side of the trigger area. Okay, because one side is for player 1 and one side is for player 2, but you definitely need 4. And logic gates are the most amazing tool in this entire game. Geniusly designed. I think this is brilliant. This is how to make your programming works, and we're going to test your logic knowledge to its best. As you'll see, I've added all these 4 throughout the whole lot. Just go through each particular box. I've just speeded it up, so we've now set those all up. Okay. So that's there on the screen. Now, what we're going to do here is we need to link these other paths to the scoreboard. Right? So we're going to use our scoreboard. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to delete it, I'm just going to move it. So I'm just going to move the scoreboard to the first set. So I'm just going to drag it across. And this is purely for me to keep focus on which one I'm doing. So I'm just going to click on here, point this scoreboard here, just a little back, and we're going to look at the first pointer. Okay? So when a player goes to that point, it's going to trigger here. The trigger says that someone's into it, and player 1 is going to go this side and they're going to get their points. Yeah, player 2 is going to go the opposite side and they're going to get their points. Okay, and I'm going to move that checker point all the way through. So we're going to do here on that trigger area, new logic connection. When you enter the area, right, but this time it's by a player and this is by player 1. And if it's player 1, it's going to go this route, and we're going to input a signal into this gate. Yeah, on the trigger area, new logic connection. When entered by player 2, so we're going to go down to player 2, is going to enter the opposite route. Okay, and we're going to enter into this side. So we have now 2 routes going down this particular side here. So we can say, right, on this logic gate, and we need 2 logic gates, and you'll see why in a moment. So new logic gate on output, can we input into this logic gate? Right, and the other one does the same thing, just travels through. So just a route straight through. So on output, can we input into this logic gate? Right. So player 1 comes in, they come to here, they get through here, they were the first ones. So we can say, right, new logic connection, on output, can you increase the score? So can you go down to the increment, and can you increase that score by 5? Because they got the first one to make it 5 points. Yeah, and that's for player 1. Okay, now if player 2 got there first, we're going to do this one, new logic connection, on output, because they've got there first, can we go into this section and can we increment the score by 5? So that does the first part. Alright, now this is the clever bit, this is the tricky bit. What if they didn't get there first? Okay, either one can get there first, which is great for player 2. But what we're saying here is, what if they don't get there? Let's say player 1 got there first, right? So if player 1 got there first, right, what do we need to do? So, well, actually, if player 1 gets there first, we need to stop player 2 from also getting 5 points. Yeah. So what we're going to do here is, if player 1 gets to this point here, the signal gets there, we need to close that gate. So player 1 comes along, the trigger, the line bolts down through here and gives them 5 points. But when it gets to this point, we know player 1 was first. So therefore, new logic connection on output, can we close that gate? Now if you close it, it means the 5 points now can't go through. Yeah, so player 2 gets to here, so when player 2 gets there, it's closed. It goes, oh, I can't get the 5 points. But what we can do is we can do the opposite. So if that gate is closed, so new logic connection, on input blocked, so it can't go through, so it's blocked. So right, okay, there we go. Therefore, we can still go to the scoreboard, and we can still increment it, but we can still increment it by 3. Okay, and that's for player 2. Now on the opposite side, yeah, that's when player 1, if player 2 gets there first, we need to stop player 1. So therefore, new logic connection on that one, if player 1 gets there first, on output, can we close, so on output, can we close the opposite gate? Yeah, so can we go down there and can we close that gate? So if player 1 is second, and they get to here, their signal doesn't go through, so we do new logic connection on input blocked, can we increment score by 3? Now the next thing I had to do is, but what if player 1 kept on coming back and forth? He could get 20, 50 points. So when player 1 has got there, or player 2 has got there, we've got to stop them going back over the checkpoint many times, because they could keep going back over the area and getting 5 points, 5 points, 5 points. They've done it. We want now to stop them. So what we want to do here is, when player 1 gets here, they've got their points. Okay, when they get to this logic gate, they get there. So we're going to do new logic connection on output. Can we close this gate? Which means they can't now go back over it and get another point. So we're going to close it. But they can do it 2 ways. So we have to do another one, new logic connection on input blocked. So either way, can we also close that gate? Because they might be second. And you have to do that with player 2 as well. So player 2, if they get there, we want to stop there. So we have to go, right, new logic connection on output, which means they got there first, close the gate, which means they can't get any more points to it. Yeah. If they got there second, right, we still need to do the same thing. So new logic connection, can we then close that gate on output? Yeah, so new logic connection on output, sorry, on input blocked, sorry, input blocked, not output, input blocked. Can we close that gate? So it's all on the output and on the blocked one. So that now sets up that score. Okay, so we're still not finished yet. Okay, but that gives us our logic, which where the score comes in. Now we need a time delayer. The time delay means we're going to give them 10 seconds for the other player to get there. Okay, so we're going to put a time delayer in, and again, look at the way I've laid it out so I can see how this logic all flows. Yeah. So what we're going to say here is we're going to set this to 10 seconds. So the properties of this, set this to 10 seconds. Okay. Now with this 10 seconds here, that's how long we're going to give them. 10 seconds seems to be a good enough time, because if you got stuck, it gives them a little extra time. So new logic connection. Alright, Now this is only on output, because once the first player gets there, we don't care if it's the second point, we start the delay. Yeah. So new logic connection on player 2, if they got there first, on output, can we start the delay? Okay, that's all we're going to do. Now when we start the delay, yeah, we want to stop any points coming anymore. Yeah, so what we can do here is new logic connection. When that delay is complete, I'd like you to close these gates. Yeah, so it could be either way, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to close them both down. I'm going to shut them down so that no one now can get any score. Yeah, so we're going to close those. Now also at the same time, so now those scores, also with the time, we're going to say, well, hold on, I need you to switch off the radar thing. So we're going to go off here. So new logic connection, when delay complete, can we switch off the radar, which we haven't turned on yet, by the way, we'll show you that later. We're going to deactivate that so the blue circle disappears. And when we set the effect generator running, which we still haven't done, we're going to do the opposite. When delay complete, can we switch off any effects we've got at that point, so that checkpoint now disappears, and we're going to stop looping effect. Now that is the logic, everything that we need for that scoreboard so far, for the score to work through. So what I'm going to do now is going to pick up the scoreboard and I'm going to move that across and do it again. Right, and we'll recap the whole thing again just to get the logic. Now you've seen how it works, it'll hopefully make a little bit more sense. Okay, so we're going to go through it one more time. I think I'll do it 3 times in total here, but we're now going to do it for the second checkpoint. Okay, so let's go through the whole thing again so you get this into your head, right? So new logic connection, when a player enters that radar area, so which player? It's player 1. If player 1 gets there first, we're going to input a signal into this gate. Okay, then we're going to say, right, player 1 gets through, so new logic connection on output, so the signal follows through because they're first. New logic connection goes into there. On output, new logic connection from that one. On output, they were the first one. If it's on output, can we give them 5 points? So can we increment by 5 for player 1? Okay, so let's look if player 2 gets there first. So player 2 gets there first, so new logic connection when entered by player. Right, this time it's player 2. So when player 2 gets there, we're going to input into this gate, which is the opposite side. Yeah, new logic connection to that gate. On output, input into the other score. Okay, new logic connection on output, which means they were first. Can we go through and can we increment their score by 5? So either way, whoever got there first gets the 5 points. So input by 5 for player 2. So that's that done. What if player 1 gets there first? So player 1 gets there first. So in their case, if player 1 gets there first, can we close the gate for player 2? Yeah, so new logic connection on output, because if it's output it means it's the first time they've done it. So on output, can we go to this gate and can we close it? Okay, new logic connection on there. Player 2 gets there but they're second, so therefore they can't go through, the output is blocked. So we do, if the input is blocked, they still got there in time, but can we only give them 3 points? So you can go to increment, so we go down to increment, and we're going to do it by 3. Okay, for player 2. But if player 2 gets there first, we need to close the gate. So new logic connection on output, which means they got there first, can we close the gate? So we're going to close that gate. And what we're going to say therefore, if player 1 then turns up, they can't go through, so their score is blocked. So on input blocked, can we then go to the scoreboard? And can you increment that by 3? Right, for player 1. So that's great. Now, to stop the player going back over the point and getting more and more points, we need to stop him doing that. They can only do it once. So therefore, when player 1 gets either 3 points or 5 points on output, can we close this gate? That means they can't go back over the area. It will stop them getting out of the point. But we have to do it twice. So we have to do it on output and we have to do it on input blocked. Can we close that gate? And we have to do the same for player 2. So on output, can we close this? Alright, and on input blocked, can we also close it? So there's a lot of tricky interconnections here, but the layout is essential. And if you lay out like this, and it will follow nice and easy. To close that gate, we have now got our points done. Now we've got these all set up, we now need a time delay because we now need to control it. So I'm just going to click on this, place that and copy it across. So we're going to bring the time delay across. We set this to 10 seconds. Yeah. So we go to properties. Let's change that now to 10 seconds. Okay, right. So what we know is when the first person gets there, that's on output. Okay, so we can say new logic connection on output. You must be first if it's an output, so start the delay. If player 2 gets there first, and that only can be an output. If it's blocked, then they were second. So it's on output. Can we start the delay? Okay, so therefore, in that case, we get it. So we say, right, new logic connection. Yeah, when that delay is complete, what do you want to do? So new logic connection. When delay complete is no one can get any more points. So in case player 2 hasn't got there yet, I need to close the score. If player 1 hasn't got there, I need to close the score. So you'll notice in the gameplay that I did earlier this week, I raced to the point, and just as I got there, the time ran out, so those gates closed and stopped me from getting the points. Now what we need to do then is switch off any indicators we have going. So when the delays complete, we need to stop our radar marker, so deactivate that one, and any effects that we do in a moment, which I'm going to show you a bit later on, we want to switch those off. So new logic connection, when delay complete, can we switch that item off there? And that is it. So we've now set up option gate 2, and you've got to do that for every single one. Okay, so we're now going to grab the marker, and we're going to move that to 3, and we're going to do the same thing for 4 and 5. We're going to do that for every single one, structuring your code like that. But make sure, by the way, you save after each gate. Save it, because it crashes, it can crash. So keep saving as you go along. That is essential. Right, so we're now going to do the next gate, and we're going to go from here. Right, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just, I've speeded this across, so we're just going to do the very last one. So we're going to just go over it one more time. Right, really drone this in. It's such an important part here, and it really is tricky. I just want to be clear. So when player 1 enters this gate, yeah, so player 1 enters in here. Which one? Player 1. Okay, so when they enter the, not that trigger, by the way, it's the locator, is going to input a signal into this gate. Yeah, so input into here. On output, can we input a signal into this gate? And on output, which means if it's on output they were first, can we then go to our scoreboard and can we add the 5 points? Okay, that's that one done for player 1. If player 2 is there, what we can do is new logic connection. Right, when player 2 is entered, so entered by player 2. Okay, it goes down the opposite path. And when you get a couple, it flows quite well. But there's so many crisscross connections here. It was a diagram made it even worse. But if you've noticed, and put your comments in, let me know if you think this has worked. I think anyone could do this at any level or age can create this program. It's a very complicated program. Any kids out there, if you want to blow your dad's brains, this will do it. But the layout is simple enough, and if you do it in this stage, you don't lose the layout. It took me a while to work out how I was going to show you this, because I thought, well, how do I do it? But build it in this type of manner, you don't get lost, and we're only focused on certain key elements and how we do this. So again, it makes sense. We don't do all the logic on those components at that particular time, because we haven't even done anything with the effects generator yet. That's going to come a little bit later, but we know we need that for the effect to occur, and we can see where we're staggering this, how it works. Now, some of you already mentioned it. If you lay out your code, it does make your life so much easier. It makes it easier to follow it. So let me know how you think this goes. Don't be put off by the logic, yeah, because you could do this logic not just on Mos Eisley. You can do it on any lap. Now, so you could do it on a road map, you could do it on a landscape map, forest map. You could change it whatever. So any city you want, you do. You could use this same logic in different locations for the same type of game. I loved it in the crew when I played this in the crew, because when you got to the checkpoint, if you block it, the user has to get in the block. So what we did is you could use a tactics to stop them getting the additional points. So if you notice the gameplay, that's exactly what Ahsoka did to me. I was about to get the points, and she shot my vehicle and pushed me away. So it adds another dynamic to the game, and honestly, it's a really great game to do. And again, there's not many games you can play together, games that you've created. That's the key thing. It's wicked. Right, 5 years on, and there's not much that they can do. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dreams is there, Dreams is the next level, but this if you want to get your kids into developing and programming, and I always get told that consoles are horrendous for kids. It's not. If you can do this on a games console, the industry to be in is gaming. Okay, it's a bit stressful. Don't get me wrong. It's not the most relaxing environment, but it's definitely something that's still growing, and it's still a big industry out there. And this is all programming logic that you can use in everyday stuff. Right, so you'll see I'm just closing all these gates. And we're almost there, so we've now created the logic here. Now we're halfway through the clip, so there's still a fair bit of logic we still need to do, but nothing as crisscrossy as before. So still quite a fair bit that we've got to do on this screen. We're only halfway through it. The total logic here only took a few bits. Now when you finish with the scoreboard, let's put the scoreboard back because we know it's linked to the challenge maker. Right, save it and have a breather. Now the one problem with logic gates is that when you load up a level, all the logic gates, all the gates are open, which means all these trigger areas are active. Yeah, if they run into there, that will send the signal through and will get the points. Now this time delay closes, we've done all the logic to switch all these off, all the effects off, it does everything, it controls everything. So I don't want to have to do the same thing again. So I'm going to use a single logic gate to input and start the timer. Okay, this is going to be my reset button. So what I'm going to do here with this logic gate, I'm going to move this down, right? And again, just like before, like the scoreboard, I'm just going to create a connection from that logic gate to every single timer and says on output, can you start the delay? Yeah. So what that allows us to do is if we trigger it off, we can do a reset that will clear off and close down all the gates so no one can accidentally cheat and get an extra few little points. Yeah, so each one of these I'm going to go to each one and move the counter down, and the reason why I'm moving the counter down is because we can't see the lines because we've got too many buildings within this particular level, so we're trying to keep it simple. So I'm just going to chuck through this screen. You'll see here I couldn't be bothered to move at the end, so we're doing the last one this one, but you see the lines aren't appearing, and I think that's because the path tools I've used are very long, and that's what has drained it a fair bit. So this is my reset button. That closes all the gates. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line that up with all my gates in a straight line. So that tells me it links all those up. So by pressing that, it's classed as my reset button. Yeah, and it's done it to 8. And I just double check, have I got 8 time delays? Yes, I have. So that works. So that there resets and closes down all those points, which is quite handy. And it's essential that we have that. We do need that on our screen. Right, so what's the next thing that we need? Right, what we're going to do is we need to let the user know that they got there. Okay, now I want to use like a firework display. It wasn't work, but I'm thinking, right, this thing was quite good, a little cannon. Now what this does is we want to let the user know that they got their points. So we have a firework to explode. Now I've got 2 different colours for the two different teams, but it lets the player know that they got there. Otherwise they could be reversing back and forth for half an hour. Did I get the points? Did I get the points? So we need to give them some sort of notification that they were successful and have got their points. Yeah, because you're so busy racing around. So we need one of these firework cannons against every single one of these points. So let's put these in. Okay, because in the gameplay, how you're trying to communicate to the player, how do they know that they were successful? Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have to link each one of these locators to those firework displays. So can you go to new locator connection and can you link it to the firework point? And can you do the same for every single one of these ones? So new locator connection to the firework. So I've just gone through all these, new locator connection and link it to the firework. So they're now set up. Right. So how do we get the firework to this screen? Well, actually, this gate here, the first set of gates, if we do an output, so whether it's their first or second, there will always be an output. Yeah. So that means the player always got the gate. Yeah. So we'll do on player 1. We want to do a firework, and you've got all these different types of fireworks you want. Because it's Star Wars related, I thought, oh, hold on, there are some Star Wars symbols. So I'm going to do a large rebel symbol, big large firework, and you can have various colours for it to appear. Now we've already got white smoke, different colours, and I wanted a contrast between the 2 colours. So in this particular case I chose green. The downside is, because it's a two-player game, you don't get to actually see what the symbol is. You just see the firework explode. Yeah, you don't actually realise that it is a rebel symbol. Yeah. Now, there aren't any properties with there. We want it instantly to explode. We don't want it to be delay when it. We want it to explode immediately that they've done it. Yeah. So there aren't any properties you need to change with the fireworks. So on the next player here, so in player 2 does it, on output of this signal, which means we know they've definitely got some points. Yeah. Can we do the imperial signal? Yeah. So I'm going to do the large imperial signal for player 2. Right. Use the large one, and I'm going to have them a different colour, red. So there's a clear difference between the two players. So again, I'm notifying the player, so new logic connection, on output, can we change this one to do the large, the rebel symbol, and can we have that green? And for player 2, new logic connection, on output, can we do large imperial signal, and can we have that red? So the players are distinctly clear that yes, I made it. And again, we're trying to find ways to communicate to the player without having to have some more text, because you can't add text to the game. And you need to do that now for every single firework throughout all the list. Okay. Alright, and just do the last one again, as I've linked it through. But you're trying to work out, how does the player know he's got the points? So that was the why I wanted, and this tool I haven't used before. Again, another tool I haven't used or shown you out of my 120 clips so far. So that's 5 years of stuff, and I'm still showing you new bits and pieces. This game is flipping amazing. Okay, and we've got that one set up. Cool. So there we go. They're all set up. And again, save. Just keep saving. It's very annoying, but just keep saving. And sometimes save it as save version 1, version 2 in case your save crashes or corrupts. Right, now this logic gate is the important one. This is the one that starts it all off. So I need to put this across every single screen here. So this is going to be what starts. We're activating that particular path. Okay, so we're putting it in front of the 2. So we know input here, that starts us off. Okay, so when we're ready, we will input a signal into each one of these gates to start it off. So we're going to say here, new logic connection, on output, can you turn on the radar? So can you activate that? So can you activate it? Thank you very much. Also on output, new logic connection, what I'd like you to do also is, can you play looped, because we want to do it. Can we do the smoke? Because the only thing I thought that stood out, can you do smoke, and can we do the smoke plume? Okay, now because this triggers everything off, what we need to do is we need to make sure the gates are all open. So new logic connection on output, can we reset these gates? So these gates now need to be opened. Yeah, because we've closed them all down. So new logic connection on output, can you open all the logic gates? Can you open that one? Right, and you have to do that for every single one. Again, more connections, but these are all the things that work. So new logic connection on output. Can you open that? And now you have to do the same thing now for every single one. So we've got to do the same thing for the next one, and so on. So we're going to repeat this again and again. Right, I'm just going to speed this up slightly to go through the whole thing. So let's just do the last one again, so we do it again. So you're going to go into this port, so new logic connection, on output, can you activate your radar marker? Right, new logic connection, when we're starting this point, can you do output, can we start the effects generator, can we play it on a looped effect, and can we do the smoke plume? So smoke, and choose the smoke plume, right, and now can we open all the gates? And that's what I'm showing. There's so many different connections here that connect all up, but if we do it in the stages, we've made this look so simple. And also we can test this all here without having to go anywhere, because you can test how each one of these works. That each of these little routines are independent. Yeah, they're their own little thing. All that does is when we want to switch them on, we just have to input a logic into this gate. That's what I quite like with Disney Infinity, is finding these type of challenges. How do I get the logic to work? I do like the programming side, but there's nothing better than the playing side of it as well, because it's such a good little level. So you have to open all 4 of those gates, by the way, so all those 4 need to be left open. So I'm just going to speed this up slightly to go through the whole thing. So let's just do the last one again, so we do it again. So new logic connection on output, can you activate your radar marker? Right, new logic connection on output, can we reset these gates? So these gates now need to be opened. Yeah, Okay, so with that so far so good. Right, so what we're going to do now is we know that that inputs it in. So what we can do here, you could test each one if you wanted to. So I'm just going to create a couple of little buttons purely for you to test it. Yeah. So I'm going to create a little button here. So I'm going to do a button down the side here. One button to do my reset, and one button to trigger it off. Right, and you could do it for every single one just to test to see if it works. Yeah, and that helps you link it. So new logic connection on pressed. Can we do this timer here? Right. And by doing that, that will trigger those all off and close all the buttons down. Yeah, and then you can create another little button here. I don't actually do it in this clip, but you could then link these to this one, input that, and you could test each one of them to check if your logic has worked, which is always a good thing. So you'll see here, as Princess Leia, if I press that button there, that sends all of them off at the same time, and that's now closed all the logic when that pings off in the air. Dun, dun, dun. Right, so now when I run over where the locators are kept, yeah, nothing happens. Brilliant. And all I've got to do is put a signal in the other one for it to work. Now we'll test that a bit later, but we don't need it, but that's for you to be able to test it. Right, so what I need now, I need this randomizer. Okay, we need two of them. One is for 4 and one is for the other 4, because we're going to split these up either side. And like I mentioned, it actually works quite well knowing that you know you're in one half of the building. You could just do one randomizer and they could be anywhere on the city, but at least you knew when you race where they were going to be. Right, so what we're going to do is on a trigger 1, yeah, so when we choose a randomizer, when trigger number 1, what do you want to do is I want you to input a signal into here. Okay, so can we just do input? Simple as that. Right, and we have to do that for the first 4. So this randomizer does the first 4. So new logic connection. When triggered number 2, can we do the second path? Right, and when we do the next one, right, when triggered number 3, can we trigger that one, and so on. Now you could do it that you could have 2 gates running at the same time, so there's 2 checkpoints to get to. Yeah, you can mix this up quite well. So I'm being quite rigid here, but it gives you the option, can I have all checkpoints open at the same time? Get there, you've got to race around different times to get them all at the same time. They switch on and off, that can happen. So I just wanted one, and I wanted there to be that big smashing into each other. Right, so I've now linked that to the first 4 points. Yeah. So what I do with the next one, so that one's done. That does the first 4, which is great. Now I can't see any of the 4 lines, which is really good, but I can check to see their 4 points, and you can look down there, you can see we've used 4 of them up, and they're evenly going to be selected. So the chart, it basically said with it being 5, not one gate's going to be more likely selected than the other. So I now need to do the same with the other one for the remaining 4. So new logic connection, when triggered 1, and again make sure you get the last 4. Yeah. So I'm going to connect it to this one. Can we input a signal into there? And again, you need to do it for 2 and for 3 and to 4. Now again, just to help speed things up a bit and keep my clip smaller, we will swipe through to the last one. Okay, and we'll do number 4. So that's us now all set up. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's now our randomizers connected between the 2. Now, this is the bit we need to be concerned on. These timers when they delay, they are going to set those randomizers off. But the problem I've got here is I have a reset button. This logic gate to the left resets them all. So if I link all those timers to the randomizer, that's not going to work, because when I reset it and clear all the gates down, I will then activate the randomizer, will switch all the gates on. So what I need is a logic gate in between these timers and the randomizers. Okay, and I want to make sure that they don't go for the first time when I do a reset, that it doesn't go through on the screen. Now you have to just bear with me with this, so just do the logic. If you don't get this particular element, it took me a while to get through in my head here. I'm going to create the another logic gate, right? Just follow the logic as you do, but this is essential what you need for the reset options. So this logic gate here is going to sit in between the 2. Okay, so we're going to do it between each one. Okay. Now what we're also going to do is that we're going to make sure that when we press our reset button, okay, it will set the timers off, which will have 10 seconds. Right, so therefore on 10 seconds we'll do this straight away. So on reset button here is I'm going to close those gates. By closing those logic gates, it means when the timer's on a reset won't trigger it off. So on output, yeah, we've got all the timers going off. Can we close these gates? Right, this is purely for our resetting the level. It's important that this happens. So new logic connection on output. Can we close that gate? Right. So we've done that particular part, that's closed. Okay, so when we reset it, the timer goes off and it doesn't start it all off. Now, we're going to open those up in a moment, but when we finish our particular level, we are playing. When that timer is to complete, we're going to input a signal into this gate. Now, at the right time, those gates are going to be open, which will send a signal. So new delay complete, can we input a signal into here? Right, input into this one. And I need to do those 4 for that one and those 4 for the other. Right, so I'm linking these 4 to this logic gate. Okay, now I'm going to do the same on the other side, but one thing we've got to be wary of, that we don't actually want to link that logic gate to the randomizer that it's next to. Okay, and the reason for that is otherwise it will repick 4 gates on the same side that you already are. We actually want that logic gate to open up the other side of the randomizer. Yeah, because we want it to move to the other side of the city, but we'll do that in a moment. But the first thing we're doing now is those items are linked together, and I'm now going to do the same with these 4 timers and link it to this logic gate. So new logic connection, when delay complete, can we do this item? Now, like I mentioned, on a reset we close it, but we are going to have to unlock it when we do the thing. So we'll get to show you that part also next. Trust me, it works. Do these settings. It took my head getting my head around this, but this little section is needed for my resetting. Yeah, otherwise you can't do it. And it was trying to keep the logic as simple as possible. Reuse the stuff as much as I can. You can see I struggled with this because I'm having trouble trying to explain it to you. So I'm hoping this bit does make sense when you get to do it. Okay. So all these now are linked to those logic gates, and this is where I'm going to say here is right. So when we do an output from here, I don't want to do that one because it will do the same side of the city. So I'm just going to move that back, yeah, and so it's not linked to the same one. What we're actually doing, we're going to cross over. So what I'm actually going to say is right. When I get to this gate here, which means we've done this side, can we go to the opposite side of the city? So we're going to do new logic connection on output. Can we input into that particular part there? Can we action that randomizer, which will pick one of the 4 sides? And we need to do the same on the opposite side, so it crosses over between the two, so we know that we're racing between the 2 cities. Now the big last issue we've got here is, okay, that's great, that's all set up, but we've just done our reset button, which has closed that gate, so those timers aren't going to get through. So that when we actually start it off, we know they've been reset. So what I'm going to do here is on this trigger here, on new logic connection, on output, can we open this gate now? So this gate can now be opened up and it will now set the timers. But sadly we don't know which one's going to start first, so I need to do it for every single one of these. So new logic connection on output, can we open up that gate? And it all depends. Those 4 have to open on this side and those 4 have to open on the other side. So the same thing again. So these 4 are linked to that gate. So new logic connection on output, can you open that logic gate? Okay, sorted. Right, and now we do the same with all the other. So that's those 4 done. Yeah. So we now do the same for the other 4, which is the other gate. So the last 4 here, new logic connection on output, can we open the end gate? Now we're almost there, almost our logic's almost done. Let me know how you do on this. I'm really interested to see. So those that have got this far in the video, those, because I only tend to get the first 5 minutes or so, but those have got this far, let me know how you found the logic. Hopefully layout is everything, yeah, and if you've done it this way and ticked off the boxes which bits you've done, you will not fail. Yeah, really complicated logic, but again, it's the structure and layout that makes all the difference. Yeah, we can understand which section does. And like I say, you can reuse this for any of your own map designs, which is great. Okay, so that's us set up there, all ready to go. Right, so using the buttons you can test to see if that logic works. But we have to trigger our starting point, which is what that first button there does. Right, so that button there starts off and we can do a test run and see if it works. But when we use our game, we need the game to pick one of the 8 spots. So actually I'm going to need another randomizer tool. Okay, so I'm going to grab another one of these, and what I'm going to do with the randomizer, I want it to choose one or the other side. So this is going to go bang in the middle. Yeah. And what this is going to do is we're going to say, right, can you pick which side are we going to start? So it's a choice of one of two. So new logic connection, when you pick number 1, what I want you to do is I want you to start this randomizer, which will then randomly pick one of those first 4 on that side. Or if you pick option number 2, new logic connection, can you randomly pick an option 2 on the other side? Yeah. So we can do either side on there. So all we need to do now is when we start the game is we now need to put a signal into that gate. So when this game now starts, so new logic connection when game started, yeah, can you input into this logic gate, which will then randomly choose which side of the city you do, and the game will then start, which is quite good. Yeah, can we action that logic gate? Okay, and then the very last thing we need to worry about is this thing here, is new logic connection. Right, we know the score is 30, so we can say when the score is reached, right, the game is over. And that's the one thing we haven't done, so it's another connection to this challenge maker. Can we complete the game? And we are now set, and we are all working, right? And what you can do now is you can actually test that when you do the game. So we play it to 30, you can give this little test run through, and that's exactly what I did. I pressed those buttons just to see how it would work on the screen. And what that test run highlighted was that when you finish the game, the last marker doesn't get switched off. So on the challenge maker, what we have to do is, when game ended, can we do our reset button? So on there you'll see I've inputted that gate, which then sets those all off, which will then stop the last gate being left permanently on. And that is now, our logic is all complete. Okay, so we have done that. So the only thing we now need to do now is to reposition these within our gameplay. And there's not many things we have to move. The logic stay where it is. So my little challenge maker, I'm going to place down in our map. This is our starting point. So this is where we start from this base. Yeah. So I'm going to move this here. What I'm then going to do is bring my podiums into this section as well. And also where the starting point. So let's go back to our thing. So we'll get these 2 locators. That's player 1, that's player 2. Where do you want player 1 or player 2 to start? You may want them to start not in the base. You may want them to start outside. But I'm actually going to put these just down in front, so they're not going to bash it away. They're going to start either side at the front of this point. Ready to go. Grab the other one. I also had Jabba the Hutt into here as well to make it look like it was his contest. It was his little section. And if you check out the Disney Infinity Guru, he'll tell you all how to unlock everything. So when anyone asks me how do you unlock this, it's not like I know it all. This guy, the Disney Infinity Guru, has got all the unlockable stuff, and I'll just post those up there if you can't find it. Right, so we now put our podium in. I feel the podium should be even higher. I don't know, I may even put some extra box on my other version to make it distinguishably that they are number 1. And if you watch the game, Mark, you'll notice Ahsoka is doesn't like to lose. It's quite funny because in our household we don't let anyone win. We don't give a free win. Right? We have to make sure you have to learn how to lose, and that's how we brought our girls up. And both my girls are different. The eldest one, she doesn't mind losing. She'll win. She wants to win, but she'll keep doing it. But my youngest one has to win at all costs. We don't let her win ever. Right, which is quite funny. Right, let's grab Jabba the Hutt. Right, where's Jabba? There's one of the characters. It's a good excuse to have Jabba on there. Right, Now I'll set this up, move the other parts. I do have another clip coming this weekend, still in Tatooine, but I'm actually going to come back to Mos Eisley in a moment. So the Mandalorian level is still to come. I've got a couple in Tatooine, but I'm going to mix it up a bit so you don't get bored. Yeah. And I got a little surprise for you coming on Saturday, and that level turned out way better than one. So I've got a brand new level, not Mos Eisley, coming on Saturday. So those who watch the entire clip, you're aware that that's coming. So best of luck on that. Right, now I think that's about it. All we need to do. All we now need to do is where do we position the locators? Yeah. So all I've got to do now is change the ground so we don't see the green, so anyone climbs up you can see any of these. So I'm just change that to Tatooine Desert. But the last thing we have to do is just position those locators where you want them to appear. Right, now it's a long clip, a lot of logic in here. Right. So I'm just going to grab these little pointers, and you're going to scatter them around. Now try and pick places within your city that gives you enough space. Don't have them too tight area because you're going to start bumping around. So you'll see here, I'm trying to think of a place where just there's enough area. So in between the foot's too close, but if I come back a bit, so that's too close. But if you see here's a larger circular area here, so and it's a corner, so you can be seen from different angles. So again, that's where I picked my first one, and you can just scatter them throughout the points. But and another thing to make your logic easy, by the way, this is also important, keep them in line so you can see which point relates to another. So you'll notice point 1 was the lowest part of the setting, point 2 is going to be slightly higher, point 3 even higher than that, and point 4. So you've got them virtually in a straightish line so that I can look back and find if something that's not working. I can look back at it, but before you even move these, you should be able to test it and check that it all worked perfectly. So I had to show you me moving these all around so you see what I've done, to get the idea of that. So this will go here. It's a big area here, and I thought, oh, what was also good, you can't see, what if it's in the tunnel? I like the little tunnel thing, so the tunnel was quite a good one. So I've had those in different places. Okay, and I was going to speed through this, but I thought I'd try and show you all as much as possible, just so you see where I've done on the map. And this fits all on top of your logic. Yeah. And again, keep saving as you're doing it. There's nothing worse when it crashes. I'm always paranoid it's going to crash and save, but keep saving as you go across. Okay, that's one side done, and you know it's all on one side, so we're now going to grab the other ones and we're now going to move them onto the other side. So keeping on the lower point again, I'm going to do 3 at the bottom, 4, and going up again on the side. Love to know who gave this a go. What did you think of the logic? Could it follow? Did yours work? What did you tweak it at all? If you did any variations to this, did you want to do it 2 checkpoints opened up? How did you twist it around? Yeah, play around with this if you want. You could have 2 gates running simultaneously, yeah, so that you can go back and forth, so it's constantly live all the time. There's different things you can do with this, so use these foundations, use anything that I've come up with that helps you out, or tweak it or make it better. Point out to me if you made it better, because I'm always good to listen. Someone's pointed out to me about the there's a collector manager, which I didn't realise, and I'm going to do a clip on that because that's a lifesaver. So I'm going to show you that shortly as well. But just position these all about. Give us your feedback. But this gets you into program. We are actually programming here. It's a real good test, and I think anyone could do this from basically from the ages 6 upwards. Yeah, it's tricky, but follow those steps. I think you can do it. The question is, save as you go along. Keep saving it, and sometimes say version 1, version 2, version 3. I do 3 or 4 versions just in case one crashes. None of it did crash on the size of the map I did, so it's quite good. If you get bored, only use 3 logic gates, don't use 4. Okay, well that is my clip for you. I'm on a roll at the moment getting clips out to you, so I've got another one coming this weekend. Everyone stay safe, keep washing your hands, yeah, look after each other, and thanks for all your comments and everything. Appreciate that. I keep reading those, so thanks a lot everyone, and I'll get another clip to you as soon as I can. Enjoy. Speak to you soon. Bye.